Canada is cracking, and Alberta might be the first piece to break off. Polls are now starting to show clear momentum towards the independence referendum, and we're now getting word that separatists are getting a little help from one Donald J. Trump. While Ottawa scrambles to respond to tariffs they didn't see coming, they're on the verge of losing their most lucrative province. Their oil, their gas, their farmland, and their political will is now being courted by the most powerful nation on earth. Canada's Liberal leaders told themselves this day would never come. Now, it's here. Hey gang, it's me, Dr. Steve, your Patriot Professor, celebrating yet another glorious day in Trump's golden age that you made possible back in November of 2024. So if you want a front row seat on how you continue to change the world in ways you never even imagined, make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. A new Ecos poll just dropped, and the numbers are staggering. 41% of Albertans now agree their province would be better off as an independent country. Not more autonomy, not a better deal within the Confederation. No, independent. It's not a fringe movement anymore. That's a plurality pushing toward the exit door while Ottawa pretends everything is just hunky-dory. Now, if you don't know, for decades, Alberta has been Canada's economic engine: oil, gas, agriculture, beef. And for decades, Ottawa has just treated it like a piggy bank to be raided and then lectured in response. So Albertans watch billions flow east through what are called equalization payments. These are basically Albertans subsidizing the economic shortfalls of other provinces so that they can have comparable social services. But they're subsidizing the rest of Canada, all the while at the same time, to add insult to injury, federal regulators are actively strangling pipelines, blocking energy projects, and imposing carbon taxes that punish the very industries keeping the entire nation afloat. And now with Trump's tariffs threatening to hammer the Canadian economy, Albertans are asking a simple question: why should we go down with this ship? Enter the Alberta Prosperity Project, a separatist organization led by Jeff Rath. And it isn't just talking about independence anymore. They're initiating it. And they're going way beyond just an independence referendum. They are meeting with senior Trump administration officials. The Financial Times confirmed that Rath and his team sat down with U.S. State Department officials to discuss what an independent Alberta might look like and what kind of relationship it could have with the United States. I mean, we're talking potential lines of credit, trade agreements, and, of course, diplomatic recognition. Here's Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent in his recent conversation with our good friend Jack Posobiec.
With all the oil and the natural resources coming out of Canada, Texas is still larger.
Well, look, Alberta is a wealth of natural resources, but they won't let them build a pipeline to the Pacific. I think we should let them come down into the U.S., and Alberta is a natural partner for the U.S. They have great resources. The Albertans are very independent people. Rumor that they may have a referendum on whether they want to stay in Canada or not.
Sounds like you may know something up there.
Look, people are saying, people
are talking.
People are talking. People want sovereignty. They want what the U.S. has got.
They want what the U.S. has got. And what's so key here is, you heard, the grievance of Albertans are twofold. It's not just the subsidizing of the rest of the Confederation to the tune of billions upon billions of dollars. It's the way Ottawa turns around and imposes woke environmental policies that deliberately stagnate Alberta's economy. Over the past 4 decades, $600 billion has flowed out of Alberta through equalization payments. In just the last decade alone, that involved $250 billion that was fleeced from Alberta's economy. Now, that $250 billion could have been used to build schools, hospitals, and infrastructure in Alberta. Instead, it went to funding Quebec's lavish daycare programs and Ontario's latest woke pet projects. Alberta built schools in Quebec while their own emergency rooms have 12-hour waits. Alberta's highways crumbled while eastern politicians sneered at their dirty oil. Add the $500 billion in shelved energy projects like the Keystone Pipeline, Northern Gateway, Energy East because of environmental radicals in Ottawa, and you begin to understand the rage driving this movement. And when this Canadian province asks to negotiate its future directly with Washington, D.C., because it's given up on Ottawa, the Trump administration isn't laughing them out of the room. No. They're pulling up a chair. They're sitting down with them and taking the meetings. And now the polling tells the story of a province reaching its breaking point. And studies are now showing that the polling in Alberta is basically at the same level of support of separatist sentiments in Quebec at the same point in their referendum process. You know, at the start of that referendum campaign in the 1990s, early September polls showed the yes side trailing by 7 to 8 percentage points, around 30% support. The media and federal government dismissed them as radicals, these separate Quebec separatists as radicals who would never come close to winning. Then the campaign started. By referendum day, October 30th, 1995, take a look at this. The vote was 49.42% yes to secede to 50.58% no to stay. It was a margin of just 54,000 votes out of nearly 5 million cats. Quebec came within literally a single percentage point of leaving Canada, and it shocked the entire country. But what's even more shocking is that Alberta is tracking at that exact same trajectory. In fact, Ipsos recently found separatist sentiment in Alberta actually rivals Quebec at its peak. And that Ecos poll showing 41% support, that was taken after Trump's tariff threats, meaning economic pressure is accelerating the timeline, not slowing it down. And who could blame them? I mean, while Canada's economy is stalled, America's literally going through an economic golden age. The stock market is absolutely booming under Trump. It just ended shy of, 16% last year. Last week, the S&P 500 surged to 7,000 points for the first time in its history. Gas prices are at their lowest in 5 years. Mortgage rates are under 6%. Inflation is under control. And last year, we collected over $230 billion from tariffs, helping slash our trade deficit in half, which means there's a massive opportunity to profit from the growth of American companies, and not just for Albertans, but you got to know what you're doing, and you have to know what's really going on, and ignore the legacy media's lying narrative of doom and gloom and the like. Their fear-mongering is deliberately trying to prevent you from taking advantage of all the actual growth we're seeing under Trump. I don't want that to happen to you. I want you to know the truth about what's happening, which is why I am so excited to announce that our good friend Mark Wilburn of Neos Capital is hosting a private live event just for our listeners called the Golden Age Summit. It's on Thursday, February 11th and Saturday, February 14th. Mark is a stock market expert. He's committed patriot and someone who has a knack for just demystifying the market so everyday Americans can profit from it. Plus, he'll help you make sense about what's really going on. I know he's done that for me, so you know how to profit from it. Now, I've been through Mark's trainings myself, and I can assure you they are top-notch. Mark hosted a few of these events last year during Trump's first year in office, and he showed our listeners how to profit during the golden age. And some of the stories we heard were absolutely mind-blowing. People like Bert, who after attending one of these events, went on to make nearly $25,000 on a $70,000 account in just 6 weeks. I mean, it just shows the type of opportunities that exist right now in this new era we're in. So if you're looking for ways to benefit from this booming Trump economy, then click the link below or go to goldenagetraining.com to reserve your spot. Mark charges thousands of dollars for this training, but he's agreed to open up registration for absolutely free for all our listeners because he wants to support patriots like you. We're living in America's golden age, and it is time to take bold moves to build the legacy we want for our families. Go to goldenagetraining.com right now to reserve your spot. Again, it's live, and it happens online on February 12th and 14th. Click on that link below right now. As we survey the polls that are coming in, from 36% support from Angus Reid polling all the way up to 47% support from Ledger, we've got to remember an important dimension to independence referendums and polling. It's very difficult to get an accurate read on support for an independence referendum, in that the support is almost always underrepresented in the polls. And that's because nothing brings out voters like independence referendums. They consistently exemplify the highest voter turnout of any election in any country. And that's because they tend to animate the disaffected low to no prop voters. So low or no propensity voters are voters who basically dropped out of the political process. And as a result, they don't get polled. So that explains why the polls are almost always so off when it comes to predicting the success of an independence referendum, because independence referendums bring out the very disaffected voters that have largely dropped out of politics and thus don't get polled. This is why Brexit was such a shock for globalists all throughout the European continent. They thought the referendum was going to go down in flames. And that's because that's what the polls showed. But as it turned out, 2 million voters, you heard that right, 2 million, who hadn't voted in the last 4 UK national elections came out and voted for Brexit. Low propensity voters or no propensity voters see independence referendums as their chance to tell the powers that be what they really think of them. And obviously, it's telling them to stick it. So that's a very important point to keep in mind throughout this entire process. Now, there is a dynamic in play here that could thwart Alberta's independence movement, or at least thwart or slow down its momentum. And that would be if something comparable to Trump happened in Canada. So here in the States, we've got our own breakaway movement in the form of Texas, right? Texas independence. I actually spoke at the Texas conference in Waco a couple of years back during the Biden era. So this, of course, is all about Texas secession. And what I noticed here on this channel, there was a huge upsurge in interest in Texas after the whole 2020 election debacle, when Biden got 180 million votes, right? And which, by the way, that debacle was in the process of being exposed for everyone to see. Thank you, FBI and Tulsi Gabbard. They're even now sifting through all the evidence they confiscated in Fulton County, right? Check out my earlier video today on that. But, of course, the opposite happened after November of 2024. Suddenly, it felt like we got our country back, and the interest in Texas dissipated. If something like that were to happen in Canada, right, a major populist victory over Ottawa, then I think we would be seeing the Albertan independence movement comparably dissipate. Now, the Conservative Party just had their national convention, and they are doubling down on Pierre Poilievre, who was supposed to steer the Conservatives solidly in a populist direction in the last election. It really didn't pan out that well several months back in their last national elections. We will see what happens in the next several months. The referendum should happen before their next national election. So I don't see the momentum stopping here. Whether it's enough to get the referendum over the line, we'll have to see. But it is clear that Canadian populism is awakening. And if it doesn't get its way in Ottawa, it does threaten to crack the Confederacy apart. These next several months are going to be fascinating indeed.